Everyone would agree that the key to success on any diet is being able to sustain it long term. But you may be surprised to learn that the key to sustainability doesn't just revolve around variety and enjoyment. What's up, guys? Me being the food guru that I am, I want to explain to you why an appropriate carnivore diet is the most sustainable diet in the world based on what I call the 3 principles of sustainability. Number 1, and most important in my opinion, is satiety. Satiety is your overall satisfaction with a meal based on how well you receive the full signals that you get from eating. Being too full and bloated, or not full enough and hungry, is very unsustainable, so the perfect level of satiation is crucial. Animal foods are the most satiating foods in the world, with the exception of salted dairy, which is why I specified an appropriate carnivore diet at the start of this video. Your satiety is largely determined by a hormone called leptin, which is released by fat cells while you're eating, and it tells the brain that you've received enough energy from food and it's time to stop eating. Carbohydrates break down into glucose, which spikes your blood sugars and subsequently your insulin, and elevated insulin levels blocks leptin signaling. This is why you may feel even more hungry after eating a carb-dense meal than when you started. This is especially true if you eat 3 meals per day with snacks in between, because this is going to chronically elevate your insulin levels and suppress leptin signaling, while also increasing ghrelin, the hunger hormone. Over time, this can lead to leptin resistance, which is a major cause of hormonal imbalances and weight gain. The leptin signaling you receive from just eating meat is perfect, and if anything, you may have to worry about undereating. Another reason carnivore is so satiating is because you're not chronically spiking your dopamine. Sugar consumption has been shown to hijack the reward pathways in our brain in a similar way that other drugs do. This is why processed foods are so hyperpalatable and moreish, and they're hard to put down once you pick them up. It's believed that this is an evolutionary response to finding seasonal fruit and berries, which historically helped our ancestors gain weight before the cold months, which obviously we don't need to do in a climate-controlled environment. Dopamine is one of our reward neurotransmitters, so when you spike your dopamine after eating, you will not feel as satiated, because your brain will tell you to eat more and more to experience that dopamine high again. You need to understand that sugar is a drug, and food addiction is very real. You cannot have a sustainable relationship with food when you're addicted to it. Your sugar cravings typically disappear after a few weeks on a ketogenic diet, because you become adapted to burning fat as your primary energy source. And therefore, the only time you should really crave sugar is when it's right in front of you and tempting you, or when you're under eating fat. Also, it only takes your brain around 2 weeks to forget the dopamine spike that you receive from any stimulus, and so the transitional period on a carnivore diet, which is around 6 to 8 weeks ideally, makes for a super sufficient detox. Now, many suboptimal diets can still be satiating, like eating plain flour and water, for example. That's why it's just as important that your diet provides you with sufficient nourishment. This is principle number 2. Animal products contain every essential nutrient in the correct form and quantity that we have evolved to require them. An appropriate carnivore diet is the most nourishing diet possible for humans, and no, you are not missing out on anything essential by cutting out the fruit and the veggies. On the contrary, there are actually 15 essential nutrients missing or in the wrong form on a vegan diet, like retinol, B12, B6, K2, creatine, to name a few. Having proper nourishment is crucial for development and functioning at a high level. Being deficient in specific nutrients like vitamin B12 and DHA will lead to impaired cognitive function, which is not sustainable. It's not just the quantity of the nutrients that's important, it's the form that they are in. There are many examples of essential nutrients that are in the wrong form in plants and supplements. For example, less than 10% of beta-carotene converts to retinol, which is usable vitamin A. Only 3% of ALA converts to DHA, the omega-3 that we need, and non-heme iron is far inferior to heme iron, and can actually cause a lot of problems when overconsumed. When done appropriately, a carnivore diet helps people feel their best, because this is a species-specific diet for humans, and contains every nutrient in the perfect quantity and form that we have genotypically evolved to consume. You may agree with all of this, but still be thinking that you need variety in your favorite foods. And obviously it's unsustainable to not enjoy your diet, which is why point number 3 is enjoyment. Humans evolved as hypercarnivores and require animal-based nutrients for optimal development and health, which is why we all naturally enjoy and crave meat and fat. There are many anecdotes of babies choosing meat over vegetables because their taste buds are more natural and sensitive to the plant toxins, which people only learn to tolerate because they believe they are healthy. In other words, vegetables are an acquired taste after years of ignoring your senses. You may be thinking, hey, I don't enjoy all animal products, and yes, this can be the case. Because unfortunately, our modern diet has been so manipulated by hyperpalatable processed foods that people are conditioned to seek a dopamine hit from eating rather than nourishment and satiety. Most people crave animal products, but they don't actually realize this because the cravings are disguised as something else. Instead of eating real, raw animal fat, people will add cheese or yeast flakes to their meal. And instead of drinking blood or eating sodium-rich raw meat, they will add sauces and seasonings. What I'm saying is genuinely not enjoying animal products would be anti-human. Because in a natural context, if you weren't able to eat these things, then you wouldn't be able to survive and reproduce. It's pretty simple. So when someone says to me they don't enjoy a certain meat, I find it pretty counterintuitive and kind of hard to believe. Because it's kind of like a lion saying that they're sick of eating antelope. Processed foods are engineered to be as addictive as possible. And as a result, we think of food enjoyment as temporary gratification, but it's so much more than that. After a short 2-week dopamine detox, you can learn to enjoy ground beef and unsalted butter just as much as you enjoy that McDonald's burger you're eating right now. No, you won't get the same dopamine high from the real food, but it will still taste good, and you'll enjoy the fact that you're actually nourished and satiated. You see, it all comes down to adaptation, and once you stop becoming reliant on flavors and sweeteners, you will actually enjoy eating more than ever. And I know you probably don't believe me, but I am speaking from direct experience here. Every time I eat the same meal as other people, I visibly enjoy the food the most because my baseline dopamine level is lower than theirs. So to put it simply, it doesn't really take much to excite my taste buds these days. For example, on Christmas, I could tell that I enjoyed my whipped cream and berries the same amount or even more than everyone else enjoyed their Christmas cake and pavlova and other desserts, even though those desserts are way more hyperpalatable. So to summarize everything, dietary sustainability isn't just based on taste and dopamine. You also need to feel nourished and perfectly satiated after each meal, which will improve your overall long-term enjoyment. Achieving this through a carnivore diet will help you look and feel your best and give you the most sustainable relationship with food you've ever had. Don't believe me? Check out my guide for how to transition appropriately into carnivore and see for yourself. Or just keep running the risk of long-term glycation. It's your life, I don't really care. Hope you make the right choice, sir. Cheers.